So how do you buy and sell property or rent property out in a high interest rate environment? So is it October of 2023 right now, just to set the stage for everyone? I think interest rates are at their not all-time high, obviously, but they're at the highest they've been since like 2000 or something like that, which is, I think
Is it?
2000, maybe 2003. But the interest rates are obviously not where they were in 2021. And a lot of people, especially in New York, are a little concerned about it because it's a valid concern. But if you really understand the fundamentals of a real estate market, you shouldn't be too worried about it. But you have to do the things that we're going to talk about, or else you're going to get stuck with properties that you can't move. So, Michael, I cut you off because I wanted to get this golden information recorded so we can have our 10 million listeners really salivate on this fine Sunday. So you were in the mortgage business for 17 years until 2013. I know a lot about you because I've studied you because you're an expert. And you've seen interest rates high, you've seen them low, you've bought properties in good and bad markets. So what are you seeing right now with
Okay.
the
So
way?
I just looked up this stat and I thought I was right, and I'm right. Between 1971, when I was born, till now, the average 30-year fixed rate mortgage is 7.75%.
That's
So,
where it basically is.
right. So let's think about it. So what people say, and I hear this from buyers and I hear this from sellers, and well, I'm just going to wait for rates to go down. I'm like, well, what rate do you think they're going to go to? And they go, well, we can get back to 3%. And I tell them all, we may never see 3% again in any of our lifetimes. Our grandchildren may never see 3%. What I've seen historically through the years is between 5 and 8% is pretty much a normal range. I don't think they're going to go up much more, but while it definitely affects the affordability, right? So if someone is buying a $500,000 house and it was 3%, and they were like, I can buy this much house, it's going to be $1,200 to $1,500 of a higher payment now because of the rate. So what I'm seeing is that people are just buying less house, right? The reasons people buy houses are never stopping, right? So people are moving into New York, they want to buy a house. People are upgrading because they need more space. They're still going to buy a house. Most people are still going to buy a house. People want to move from a crappier neighborhood to a better neighborhood. They're still going to do that. But this person who was looking at a house for $900,000 today is going to look for a house for $700,000, and the same thing for 700 to 500. So that actually helps. Most of what I do, I think a lot of what you do too, Greg, is we're on the lower end of the spectrum, right? We're not on the luxury market. We usually avoid the luxury market. And there are people that only do the luxury market. The people that only do the luxury market have gotten hurt, right? We know Jason Lewis in Utah. So luxury in Utah is like $600,000, but that part of the market got slammed last summer, where 30% drop. Jason told me he lost money on, I think, 6 or 7 flips he was doing just to get rid of them. He had to lose them because the market just came apart. But what I'm seeing now is if you price things right, both wholesaling to cash buyers who are going to rehab, and on the retail side, if you stay at a good price, it'll still sell. And what I have to do with myself, and this is, I teach people this, and sometimes we teach things better than we do them. And I just had 2 scenarios where I did the ultimate screw up, which is I priced them higher than I should have because of my costs or the time, and I screwed that up. So one of them actually worked out. It's like a miracle. It's a property that it took me 2 years to evict a tenant, and I bought it for $450, but I really should have priced it at $599, and I priced it at $649 because I have so much interest in taxes. Where I can say I think I found a buyer at $630, but another one that I had where I'm definitely going to lose money on because I bought it for too much money, because I bought it basically for a vacant price of like $600,000. I pay $6. Yeah, stupid. I should have paid like $550 or $525 for it. And it took the year for the tenant to go out. Now the tenant did pay rent, so that's good. I can offset some of my losses and that my money that I'm gonna have to bring to the closing with the rental income I got. But I wanted to sell for $699. That's what my dream. But I'm an idiot. And then of course we had a problem, so I had to just fix it up. I'm gonna put it out at $649. I assume I'm gonna sell it relatively quick. So we have to do that, but we have to be aware that I've heard stupid sayings my whole life in the real estate market. I've heard in an area where, when times were bad, there's nobody buying anything. That's bullshit. Or there's nothing for sale. That's always bullshit. Everything is a function of price, right? Everything. People will tell me in a super hot area, there's nothing for sale. Bullshit. You can find something. If you want to pay more, somebody will sell it to you, right? There are things being listed for sale. You may look at it as, how can I pay that much money? But it's available for sale. And the same way the other way. So I think we have to think in terms of we need to stay on, let's say, the lower end, maybe less than median home price in an area, because there will always be a market for that. And right now, there is an incredible lack of supply. Even more so, much more so, when you're wholesaling to cash buying rehabbers, they can't find anything, right? And they're gonna. I hear them say stupid things like, "Oh, it's such a tough time now, I can't find anything." If you have something, you're going to do great. So I just had something that I got for, I knew it was a great deal. I got it for 250.
That's a great
The
deal.
ARV is like 550. It's
Oh
a
my God.
small house, but needs work. And I put it out for 299, knowing that it was a steal. And I'm gonna sell it for over 350.
That's
So
incredible. Where did you,
$100,000 wholesale.
how did you
Well,
find that deal? What marketing channel did that come from?
it was direct mail.
Dude, direct mail is always the best. That's,
And I
that's
thought it was dead. I thought it was dead as a doornail, because let's just say the sellers are a little loony, and they started
never seen
screaming
that
at me.
before.
When they started screaming at me when I told them that they need an attorney. I'm telling them they need an attorney. They're telling me that's not how it works. So I figured it was done. And then they came back to me. By the way, here's a little nugget also, and you may want to take this. The guy went with me instead of somebody I know, a good dude
Do I
in
know
my
them?
area. You know them, because I was A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, and I had a high, like almost 5-star rating on Google. So if you're not looking at those things, you should look at them, because every once in a while they make a difference, and they're not expensive. People don't know this, but the Better Business Bureau is just a straight up scam. You just pay them $500-600 a year, and they give you an A+ rating. That's it.
Well, that's
Unless you get
$100,000 lesson, Michael. You're going to make
right.
$100,000 on that deal that you would not have otherwise made.
And he showed me. Well, I'll take a little bit more credit for it. There's a little creativity. Like he had a higher offer, and there were certain things he wanted, like a lot of post closing possession. I gave him 4 months post closing possession, and I ran title before he even agreed to my price. I ran the title, because I run enough title that I don't have to pay cancellation fees. But even if I had to, so I showed him the title. So he said, "Wow, you're clearly committed to this." And but he took, I think it was $10,000 or $15,000 less from me because of that. But he kept saying, I know you're good because you're Better Business Bureau. So if anybody doesn't want to spend the extra $600 on the to get A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, just do it. It's easy. I mean, obviously, if you get complaints against you, I only got one complaint against me. Didn't I ever tell you that complaint?
No,
I got
what
a
happened?
complaint from someone that got a postcard from me, and she complained to them that she's on a do not mail list.
Never
So
heard of that before because it doesn't exist.
There's no such thing as a do not mail list. I said, I will never mail her again. I go, but that's not a legitimate complaint. So anybody can get A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau as long as you don't have complaints against you. So it's worth it, because it matters to some people.
Yeah, no,
So
100%.
definitely.
100%. I mean, but here's the great lesson I'm getting from all this is like, you're about to make, $100,000 from this deal if it closes. And right now, everybody's complaining about the market being hard, which is not as easy as it was. But I will argue that it's almost better because I'm seeing there's less competition because people are pulling out of their marketing. So we're not having to deal with as much bullshit. However,
Exactly.
I mean, we're still wheeling and dealing. We're still picking up the volume that we need to pick up. And, we're doing pretty good. We had a bad Q3, but that happens. But you have to understand the biggest little nugget you said that you kind of glanced over quickly was that the main driver of any real estate market is supply. And there's still no supply pretty much nationwide anywhere. Because the reason in 2010 and 11 and 12 it got really bad is because there was an oversupply because everybody lost their house and the demand was pretty weak because of the economy and people's ability to get loans. So it created a really, deflating market because there was an abundance of houses. You could have went to Las Vegas and drove in a subdivision and every house would be for sale. And there weren't enough buyers to fulfill that demand. But in this economy, and I remember Jeremiah and I interviewed Barry Habib. He's like, the number one reason the market will not get smoked is because there's still very limited supply, mainly because of the interest rates. Because I see a lot of people, especially here in Reno. I mean, I was at someone's house last night at some friend's house, and they have a 2.75% interest rate. And I told them, I'm like, never sell this house because this interest rate, you're never going to see it again. So a lot of sellers might want to sell, but they don't really
So
need
I don't
to.
know if I agree with that, because I don't think people sell their house. I don't think the decision to sell your house has anything to do with your interest rate. So people sell their house for the same reasons, right? They need to move, they want to downsize, they want to upgrade, they whatever the reason is, right? And there are definitely some people that are going to say my rate is so low, it would be crazy because I'm going to sell this house that I'm paying 3% on, and now I
Downgrade
got to go pay 8%.
Yeah.
But I think for most people, they're just going to look for less of a house, and they're going to do it. So I think there's some of that, but I don't know if that's the reason why supplies. I think they really haven't built enough houses, and they haven't. There just isn't. There just aren't enough houses now. And again, we're looking at this from a macro basis, like on the whole country and the whole world. But the truth is, it's very local, right? In
Everything is
certain
local estate.
in certain areas, it's going to be better than others, and in certain areas, it's going to be worse than others. And that's one of the reasons why I like going to Investor Field, where you won't be tomorrow, because I get a feel for what's going on all over the place. And sometimes people are saying the exact opposite of what's going on with me. People were talking about during the beginning of the pandemic that they were having like amazing times. And I was in New York, man. People were hunkered down in their homes, burying their head in the ground. I had 17 properties that I had to clear out that we couldn't even get an attorney to take a phone call.
You couldn't
So
even get somebody to show up there if they got paid.
right. So everything is different, and that's why I like seeing a big view of it. But if you're watching us from another area, you may be seeing something different than we are. But I still believe on a macro basis, there is certainly a lack of supply. And what I'm seeing in New York and in El Paso is
Which are two opposite markets from a
complete
geographic
opposites.
standpoint.
Complete
Yeah.
opposites. But I'm seeing similar things, and that is if you price something right, it's gone fast. There's always going to be bargain hunters, and we don't even realize how different the world is today from even 2008, right? The ability of the internet to show people from all over the world properties anywhere in the United States that they can buy if they believe it's a good deal has absolutely exponentially gone up. Because right now, I mean, there was a guy I know in Phoenix. He said he had 60,000 buyers on his cash buyer list. That means 6,000. And a lot of them are from out of the country. So people are just looking for deals, right? People believe that real estate is a good asset, and people will buy it if they believe they're getting a good deal. And the market is extremely efficient when it comes to 1 to 4 family because of the multiple listing service, which not only broadcasts onto 10,000 other websites like Zillow and Trulia, but it gets picked up on by all kinds of people. And if you have a good buyers list, like I know you have and I have, we know the people that are looking for deals, and they're clamoring for deals. There are guys who are crying that they have crews that they're going to lose because they can't keep them busy. And some of these guys will pay way more than they should for a deal from a wholesaler if it can keep their crew busy. So there really is a much more efficient market due to the internet, and there hasn't never been a real estate market that has this much online presence. And I think that puts us in a situation where if you have the goods and you have a property that's at a discount, whether you're wholesaling it to a cash buyer or whether you're retailing it to an end user buyer, it's an amazing time to sell property right now.
100%. I agree with you because I get a text or an email from buyers every week saying, "You got anything coming up? I need something. I have no deals." And I'm like, yeah, we should have some stuff coming up soon. So here's another big takeaway for listeners, because I'm going to put this on both podcasts. So this doesn't matter where you are. If you are somebody who can go direct to the seller and source your own inventory, you'll have a business no matter what the economy is doing. Because the problem I see with a lot of buyers who don't market themselves, which is great for you and me, is that they're too dependent upon other people to bring them their properties. But if you're always marketing and you're getting leads and you're making offers and you're direct to the seller, you're always going to have these opportunities coming in, and you're not going to have to be in a situation where you don't know where your next deal's coming from. Like I know every day I can wake up and I know we're going to get 3 to 6 leads a day that are going to come in. We're going to make offers on, and we're going to get new inventory. So I see a lot of buyers right now, back in the day in 2021, 2 years ago, where it was such a hot market. There were so many people wholesaling. They could pick up these properties with shitty margins and sell them for more because of the way the rates were. They're trying to do that same thing now, and it's gotten a lot slower for the inventory that they're able to get from wholesalers or from real estate agents or even just, from the MLS. So I've found that with our business, for example, we had a bad Q3, but we didn't take our foot off the gas. We just kept pushing. Now we have all this momentum that I knew was going to come in, and we have all these properties coming in, and we have all these great deals happening because we didn't take our foot off the gas. I think in COVID, I made this mistake slightly. I don't know if you did this, but I kind of paused things for a little bit because I really didn't know what the hell was happening, because there was,
I thought the
yeah,
world was going to end.
yeah, nobody knew what was happening. So a lot of people decided, most people paused. I know some people who actually went the opposite and put their foot on the
Yeah.
gas, and they
But
ended up
on the
making
West Coast, on the West
on the
Coast and
West.
outside of the Northeast, that really people flew. It was a crazy situation when people weren't feeling. At least that's what I was told. People weren't feeling any kind of insecurity about their health. but they were feeling insecure about the prices. Like they thought that prices were going to come down
Yes.
as this pandemic happened. So sellers really sold. In New York, people were terrified about their health. So you called up a seller and they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't know if I'm going to be alive in a week. So
Yeah.
you couldn't get that. It was in different parts of the country. But another thing you said about going direct to sellers is that we can buy property significantly less than people who don't go direct to sellers.
Oh,
That's the
100%.
main reason. That's the main reason I started. I mean, that was Brad Chandler who told me back in 2013. He's like, you got to start wholesaling, and you're never going to be able to buy. I was buying everything at auction, live auction, and an online auction. He's like, you're never going to be able to buy things cheap enough to wholesale. He goes, you got to start marketing. That was the greatest call I ever had.
That was probably that piece of advice, and we know Brad pretty well. He's a great guy. That was probably worth 8 figures to you, my friend, at least. Yeah, I remember. It's funny, kind of going back. I remember when I didn't really know you back then, but I remember your stories. You were just buying shit at auction, which is great when it's great, but you can't control half of that shit. And even these people I know who do referrals, like it's like, listen, if I had my druthers, I would never want to talk to a seller again. I personally fucking hate talking to sellers. I hate
Me
spending
too.
money on marketing. I can't stand it because it's a fucking pain in the ass. But the reason I do it and you do it and to the tens of thousands of dollars a month is because we know the result is predictable. I fucking hate talking to sellers, and I train people on how to talk to sellers. I can't stand the personalities and the flakiness, but I know that it's worth it, right? So the
Exactly.
referral marketing with wholesalers, listen, if that worked like it direct to seller worked, I wouldn't spend a dime on marketing. But you
100%.
set yourself up to have these big swings where you don't know where your next deal is coming from because you have no input you can put into the system. You can only call so many people you know. But I
Right.
know,
And
and
what you
you
said about
know,
auctions is 100% true.
yeah,
You cannot control what somebody else is going to bid, right? You don't
you
know.
can't control it. You cannot
Right.
control it. I mean, listen, I'll tell you the best deal we did so far this year was actually from a wholesaler, and it was like 135 grand walk away net. And if
You
I
wholesaled it also, or you
no, I
rehab
bought
it?
it.
Yeah.
I renovated it, and I didn't even put that much work into it, but it was a
What?
135 grand walk away spread. And I'm like,
Where was it?
it was in California, actually. It was a quick story. So this is funny. I'm on Instagram last year. This was almost a year ago. And some random guy sent me a message and he's like, do you buy in Spring Valley? And I'm like, yeah, I do. I actually have done a deal in Spring Valley, which is right near basically San Diego. And he's like, I have this house, the seller's in foreclosure, and I actually just paid 70. He spilled his candy. He shouldn't have done this. He's like, I just paid 70 grand to catch him out of foreclosure. He's like, do you want to buy this property? And I'm like, send me the numbers. And I looked at, I'm like, oh,
That sounds pretty good.
yeah. So I drove right out to the house with a realtor who I know who like could help me with the value. And he is like, if you don't buy this house, I'm going to buy it. So I made a deal with a wholesaler like that same day. And I closed on it right in the beginning of the year. And I put like 16 grand into it. Nothing crazy. It was dirty inside, but it wasn't anything crazy. And I sold
How much did you give him? How much did you pay him?
it $60,000 assignment fee.
You put it for 130.
I think it was like in the sixes. I forget the numbers. The wholesaler made 60 grand. The wholesaler made 60
You
grand.
said he's paid 70 for it, right?
He spent 70 to get him out of foreclosure, but he got back his 70 plus his assignment fee. So he got back all that money because that was like, he made that deal with the seller. So he made 60 grand wholesaling me the house. So he made a ton of money. That's a 60 grand wholesale deal. Any market's great. But I saw the value of this thing and we went to go put this on the retail market, which is really where you make the money. We had 33 offers. It was nuts. And I'm like, my thought process was, all right, I don't mind paying 60 grand assignment fees if the numbers work, but I can't control that. That's going to happen once a year. Right. But when I'm going direct to seller, I can control, like I can send 10,000 mailers and I know what's going to come from that. So the point I'm trying to make to the listeners is like, yeah, you can get referral deals and they're great, but don't count them as like your main source of revenue because you never know when that's going to actually happen.
100%.
Have some army of agents bringing you deals and you have some sort of I mean, there's people that do that, but it's two people dependent. And listen, in paid traffic, I mean, a lot of people, I know we're on a different topic, but I think it's relevant. It's like paid traffic sucks because it's a whole nother business. But if you can really get good at paid traffic, you're never going to have big revenue issues. You're going to have up and down months, but you're never going to have these like big, like, oh my God, we didn't make money for 6 months. That will never happen because you're always going to have the leads to support the back end of the business. Because Michael, when you went direct to seller, I know this is another, thing that you went through is like you already had a business. You already knew how to do deals. You were not a rookie and you didn't see a penny from it for 9 months, I believe, right?
9 months.
Spending
And I was spending over $20,000 a month in marketing.
I mean, that requires elephantitis of the testicles.
But I did have leads and appointments and contracts. You know, I saw progress. I'm not saying you won't see any progress for 9 months if you're spending 20,000 on that. Scary. But yeah, it took a long, but that it's part of how long New York takes, right? New York, the whole process takes forever. It's just insane.
I'm spending right now in Reno 10 grand a month. I haven't seen a fucking nickel from it. And I've been doing that for a few months now because it's really competitive here. But like people don't, the thing with marketing that I hope everyone who's new listens to this is like, you have to have the faith to know that it will work over time. Because listen, for me and Michael,
Very hard. It's very hard when you start.
but I know, but it's like
Very hard. It's very hard.
work out in any market. It's scary because even if you don't have to spend 10 grand a month, you could spend 2 grand a month, but
Correct.
you have to look at this money you're spending as like you're planting these seeds in the ground and the trees will grow over time. But when people don't do it consistently, they get like, because you coach way more people than I do. They think they're like, oh, I can't spend that money because I don't have it. But it's like, if you don't spend the money, even if it's on a credit card, you're never going to see anything. You're never going to do a deal.
I'll take it one step back. You can't start marketing until you can commit to spending whatever you're going to spend every month for like a year. Like if you're
a year.
saying
You need to be even longer than a year.
if you're not, like, let's say your budget's $2,000 a month, which is fine.
24 grand.
If you're not committed to spending 24 grand, like, don't start. Because what happens with 4 out of 5 guys is they start and then they stop and then they say, oh, that shit doesn't work. That's what happens. And even people that I admire, people with much bigger businesses than you or me, will come to Investor Fuel and talk about a lead channel that they tried for 3 months and it didn't work. And I'm like, you didn't give enough time. You just didn't. Like, that's the truth. And sometimes they're like, you're probably right. Like, I know I've made the mistake also. I tried radio for 3 months. That was stupid. I should have tried radio for 9 months, but it was expensive and I didn't think, oh, I'm going to try it. I'm going to see. But the truth is, I shouldn't have gone into radio until I had committed to spending the money there for a year.
Bad spend.
It's the truth. And the only person I've ever seen who honestly talks about how long the cash conversion cycle can be if you're going to close on something and rehab it is Tiffany High. Tiffany High will admit, even in Ohio, right? She's in, like, Ohio is like
easiest market in America.
Right.
Everything works in Ohio.
When we're going to close on something and rehab it, and she still does that, she goes, it's going to be a year between the time I spend money on marketing and the time I make a profit. Now, she has a huge business, so she's making money in the meanwhile. But most guys will say, oh, it's going to be, your cash conversion cycle has to be less than 90 days. If you're closing on something and fixing it, how the hell are you getting paid in 90 days? Impossible.
If you take the money you spend to get the lead and then here's another thing. I'm not calling anyone out here, but I'm just going to be very honest here. You and I listen to a lot of material and books and podcasts. I'm watching 3 to 5 podcasts a day. It's just what I do for fun. There's somebody who mentions, and I agree with them in theory, that if you really want to get good at wholesaling, you have to have a tight cash conversion cycle, which is true, right? Like, in a perfect world, that's true. If you could have your cash conversion cycle be 45 days or even 30 days, ideally, because that's the billing cycle of any vendor.
Jesus, even 60 days would be amazing.
You'd be fucking, parting the Red Sea. But the truth is, even in wholesaling, this doesn't even have to be in New York, is the problem that I found with scaling, and I made a video on this that's going to come out this week, is the problem that happens even in wholesaling is you get all of this revenue booked in accounts receivable, right? So you have all this pending revenue that you're kind of almost counting before you spend it. And there's so much that can happen with sellers and buyers and title issues. Your accounts receivable and then your actual, cash collected, the gap can be so big. And a lot of companies, what happens is they scale up their staff and their marketing and they have all this receivable, but then when they actually go to collect and it's 30% less, they fuck up their cash flow. And it's this business. This is the reality of this business. You can't change it. So other businesses that are not dependent upon deals closing, and this would happen in brokerage too, it's like monthly recurring revenue. You have a subscription. Obviously there's churn. You have agency revenue. You have clients. So you're not going to have these big revenue jumps, but you're also not going to have these like huge swings. Like you might have a 10, 20% churn rate, but you're still bringing in consistency. So a lot of, and you and I are an investor field. We see this with people. They have these big numbers. And like, I know people who had big wholesaling businesses a year ago that don't even fucking wholesale anymore.
Really?
Get that. I'll tell you about that offline.
What do they do? What are they doing now?
Well, not because they failed, not because they're
they closed the business down, or they just focused on something
else? They have
else?
another business that makes more money. So it's like, why the fuck are they going to wholesale? Like, I'm not saying they failed out of wholesaling, but it's just, they realize that the revenue is so unpredictable at scale, not if you're doing like a couple deals a month. It can really, and it's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cause we've been there. Like I've had months where we've done
Sure.
180, 200,000. And then the next month you make 30 and you're like, what the fuck? And you don't
Next
really,
one you make zero. Next one you make zero. I'd say
I've had to write checks, dude. I've had to fund the business out of my own pocket this year for the
the
first
two
time.
biggest complaints I see at Investor Field. I've been going there for 4 years, and I go to every meeting. I'm like,
I know you do. I know.
I only missed 2, and they were both for my daughter's wedding.
4 kids and I have 0, but what am I talking
I'm
about?
4 right now. The two biggest complaints I see is, how do I get things more consistent? You know, and I'm talking about people that have like businesses where they're netting many millions of dollars. They go, oh, I had an $800,000 month, and then I have a $20,000 a month. And of course, half the people in the room are saying, I wish I had a freaking $800,000 month. But they want things consistent, and I don't know if it's possible. It's probably impossible. And the second thing people complain about is they can't keep an acquisition manager because they're constantly turning them over, or staffing in
I
general.
can talk about that. I can get into that right now. I'll give people some free education on the acquisitions manager.
Let's do another podcast on that.
All right. To summarize this podcast, so interest rates, you don't want to be scared about them. They're really not that unreasonable comparatively speaking to history. There's still a very limited supply all around the nation, even in New York, New Jersey, wherever, California, Nevada. So you have to understand, if you can source deals directly from sellers like we talked about, and you can spend the money on marketing, you're going to have buyers, whether you're wholesaling or flipping houses, or if you're going to have tenants. I mean, I have tenants, you know, I get tenants, no problem ever, especially now because people aren't buying as much. So you got to understand, interest rates are not going to be the reason why you fail in this business. It's going to be on you and your ability to not market and get deals. So hopefully people got value from this. If you did, please leave us a review on both of the podcasts, and we will see everybody on the next episode.